Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Brad LeBeau, the one and only, who is the founder and CEO of ProMotion, the Brad LeBeau Company Inc. Brad, thank you for joining us today. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, if they're not in the music business, that's mean they've been living under a rock. So give us just a quick introduction. Then I'm going to also have another introduction to you, how I met you, how this whole thing came about. So please.
First of all, Bob, thanks for having me on the show. I
My pleasure.
appreciate it. I don't take any of these things for granted. I have been doing this the company will be 42 years old in July, and I own
Amazing.
and operate the largest independent remix and promotion uh, of dance music in the business and in the world at this point. And, we started in 1983,
Yes.
and I was 26 years old. I know a little bit more now than I did then, but not that much more. And we've been very fortunate. We represent independent artists,
Yeah.
major label artists, established artists, new artists, domestic and international. Our clients are the artists themselves, their record companies, publishers, managers, and sponsorship and Fortune 500 companies. So
Amazing. I didn't usually play music on my show as a for introduction, but for you, I think I should have done that. The song that I'm Still Standing by Elton John. And this song is, I think it's all about you. I'm still standing. This is you. You know, I'm in the music business. You're in the music business. You've been in it for such a long time. You've seen so many things, so many stories, so many artists come and go. So many artists came from nowhere, became massive. Labels came, folded, became big, got bought out, taken over. We're going to talk about all of that. It's going to be extremely fascinating and insightful and inspiring, most of all. Brad, I'm just going to say one thing. This show's about you, not about me, but I got to say how I met you and how I was inspired by you. I don't remember the year, but it was many moons ago, back then, when I think I had my first hit and I wanted to promote it. And I somebody said, "Hey, try Brad LeBeau. He's good." So I called you, set up an appointment. I came up to your office. I think you had an office in Soho, if I remember correctly. Am I right? You had an office in Soho?
Soho is my second office. Yes,
Second
63
office.
Green. My first
Yes,
office is
yes,
857th Avenue.
yes. No, I went to the one in Soho and I walked in. I mean, you had the same kind of, I would say, slick, fashionable look. The office was absolutely immaculate, clean, the glass doors. I walked in. You had the earpiece, clean desk. I mean, most people in the music business are messy desks, and I was one of them. I
Is that
know
right?
that. CDs, yes, yes, yes. Many people in the music, they have messy, messy desks
Okay.
between magazines back in the day and CDs everywhere, everywhere.
Okay.
And yes, absolutely. So yours was like, you spoke success, you spoke professionalism, you spoke money, everything. Like you walk in, you get that vibe. I'm like, okay. You walk into this guy's office after I left. I'm like, okay, this guy,
I'm
it's all
sorry
about
I'm laughing.
business.
Bob, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's when you say that to me, and,
Yeah,
and I need to be rigorously honest
yeah.
about this. It's almost as if you're talking about somebody else because I've never
No, talking about you.
really looked at myself that way. And this is not
Yes.
false humility, but I'm smiling and I'm grateful and I'm laughing and I'm thinking I really need to meet this guy.
And I walked in and you had your suit on, your suspenders. No one in the music business, major labels, I walked into their office, wore suspenders or suit or tie. Everybody wearing sweats,
Yeah.
t-shirts with spots on it. It doesn't, there could be big executives, you know, uh,
With
you like
spots.
you represented something that really it spoke success. If you're
Oh, thank you.
serious, you
Thank
want
you.
to promote your music, then come in, let's talk. It's all about business, professionalism, money, success, music. And I said, and I was inspired. I'm like, I like this guy, how he works. The professionalism, the image he portrayed, clean desk. He had the little speaker here on attach his head and all that. I'm like, this guy, he means business.
Okay.
I never came back again. I'm like, I'm not gonna approach this guy again because you know what? It's okay. But I was inspired by you actually.
So
It
did
it, it
that intimidate you?
No, it kind of did it kind of a bit, but it pushed me further to be
Oh, okay.
like that,
Okay.
because you spoke success, growth. You want to be in the music business, you got to look the part and you got to act the part and you got to be professional. And that's how you're going to succeed.
Hmm,
So,
thank you.
yes, you could portray all these things and it left a positive impression on me
Hmm,
when I came to your office back then.
okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I'm
So,
humbled.
now what inspired you? And you said to me earlier before we started, you kind of really weren't planning to be in this business. And 42 years later, here you are. So, what really is it? Your parents? You part of a band? What really got you into the music business? What started
So,
this whole
so
journey
yeah,
back in your
yeah.
teenage days?
No,
Yes.
it's a really it's a very popular question, and the answer has always been the same. Most people that I know, probably yourself included, knew early going that you wanted to be in this business. That was not my story. That was not my story. Was born, raised on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I'm a Jewish kid. 1957, January 12th. I came into this world thanks to my mother and father, who say they
Knock on
were my
wood.
mother and father. I will trust that they are. And I was raised with a lot of different kinds of music playing in the house. My parents were very eclectic in their tastes. My mom was an amateur opera singer. My father was a creative. He's a jewelry designer on Madison Avenue for many, many years. But we never spoke about Brad being in the entertainment business or the music business. The fact was, I wasn't a very good student, or so I thought. I had terribly low self esteem. I was short. I was heavyset. I wasn't popular with the guys or the girls. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't a brainiac. I was pretty much a loner. I was very shy, and I was an isolator. Let's call it what it was. I was an isolator, which is counterproductive to being in the entertainment business. That's show business, right? But
Yes.
as I grew up, it will come as a shock to you probably, but Jewish, being a doctor, my mother wanted that for me. My mother ruled the house with an iron microphone. My mother did not mess around. My mother was very strict. When my mother said jump, we said, well, we're up here. Can we get you something? That's who she was. And I remember it was probably my junior year in high school. I came home and I didn't want to go to college, only because I didn't think I'd be accepted by any schools. That's how low self esteem I had.
Mhm.
And I went home and I remember after school, I came home one day and I said to my mom, I'm just not into this whole college thing. And she said, is that right? I said, yeah. She goes, good, because here is the list of schools that we're going to apply to, Brad.
Oh.
That's who my mother was. And on the top of the list was a university called Brandeis. And Brandeis, for those people who don't know, was set up many, many years ago as an Ivy League school for Jews that were not allowed to participate at Harvard or Yale.
Really?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, I
So,
don't know that.
the I'm not going to college conversation ended that day. And I applied to Brandeis. I got into Brandeis. And I went into the pre med program. I always loved biology in high school. I did a research. I was a research assistant as an intern at Rockefeller University in Manhattan. I loved it. But again, no grand plan. But I was pre med my first year. And the beginning of my second year, my mom passed away. And I remember it was September of 1976. My father called and said, your mom has a couple of days to live. You got to fly back. I visited her in hospice. She passed away. And I remember shortly thereafter calling my father from the pay telephone at the cafeteria at university. And I said, now that mom's passed away, I'm really, really not interested in pre med. And Bob, my father said something to me that changed my life. And he said that men in this society have to work more during our waking hours than anything else. He said, if you are truly blessed, you will love what you do for a living so you can do anything you want. Now, if my father had said you are to stay in that program, I would have stayed in that program. And dollars to donuts, I would have failed out of the program. I just
Hmm.
didn't have what it took. I knew it. I was aware of it. In any event, at the same conversation on the payphone, I asked my father if he'd give me more than $25 a week allowance at university. He was paying 25 bucks a week, 1975, and he said, no. He said, I'm paying for your education, which then, by the way, was $12,000 a year. He said, Grandpa bought you a car. and I'm giving you 25 bucks a week allowance. If you want more money, get a job. I said, get a job? I'm a full time student. How can I get a job? He said, get a job at night or on the weekends. So disco in 1975 was huge, 76 huge, 77 huge.
Mhm.
And I would go to these clubs in Boston with my girlfriend at the time, and we danced to disco music every weekend. So I thought, you know what? If I'm going to these clubs anyway, right? And I see there's a guy, he's putting a record here, he's putting a record on that turntable, he's doing this thing, I don't know what it is, way too intimidated to ask. I said, maybe I could do that.
Come
I
a DJ.
always had a proclivity for black music. I have
Mhm.
never to this day connected with rock and roll. I just haven't. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm sure it's good. I couldn't tell you Leonard Skinner from a Robert Plant. So I started to go to these clubs, watch these DJs, would never go up to them, but I started to practice at home. I got two turntables and fiddled around a little bit. Came back to Manhattan. I auditioned at a club in Manhattan, and I lost the dance floor within the first three records. I didn't get the job. That was it. But I practiced the next year, and I started to play records. And I got a job in Boston playing records at night. And I made some cash, and I met girls. Who's better than Brad? I was now 19 with no plan to do anything other than that. But I loved school. I loved go to school. I went to early classes. I would rewrite my notes. I was that guy.
Hmm.
I graduated early and I came back to Manhattan and I got the job at the club that didn't hire me the first time. It
Which
was a
one?
small club on the Upper East Side. It was called Court Street. It
Oh
is no
no.
longer. And I remember when I got the job, the DJ who was moving on had said to me at that time, I know somebody who knows you from high school. She was in a class older than you. Would you like to meet her? She works in the disco magazine business. I said, sure, why not? I met her and they hired me as an intern. And at this magazine, my job was doing record reviews. So I got to meet a lot of people in the music business. Again, Bob, no plan. I figured, I go to clubs, I get free records, I play records. I'm good. I'm now 20 years old. At this time, I get approached by a guy who is still in the music business today. His name is Ralph Tashcan. And
Ralph
Ralph,
Tashkin, yes.
right,
Matter of fact, I'm
Ralph
gonna have him on this show a couple of weeks from now. Yes.
Ralph, it was the second in command at a
Yeah.
company called Tom Hayden and Associates. They were the biggest independent dance club promotion company at the time.
Yes.
Ralph had heard about me through this magazine. He offered me a job at the same time, the same week that Roy B. of Emergency Records offered me a job as a promotion guy. I knew nothing about promotion. I just liked records. I still call them records. I talked to Roy, I talked to Ralph, I talked to Tom. I took the job with Tom. Coincidentally, they both had the record Born to Be Alive.
Oh my God.
Tom and Ralph had the original by Patrick Hernandez, and Roy B. had a cover of it. And now they're both running against each other as to who's going to chart. I took the job with Tom. The record ultimately went number one. It was a huge pop record. And I got fired within 3 months because nobody taught me how to promote. They just thought because I liked records that I could naturally do it. But again, I was still a little shy. I was sort of coming out of my shell, but not really. Anyway, I get fired after 3 months. And then I end up at a company called Z Records. And Z Records at the time had an act called Don Armando's Second Avenue Rumba Band featuring Fonda Ray,
Hmm.
who went on to record records like Fat Rat, etc. But her first hit was called Deputy of Love, which was the B side of a 45. The A
Wow.
side was I'm an Indian too. I learned how to promote records to the Billboard Club chart. It was my first number one record on Billboard. And that act was managed by Tommy Mottola because that act was also involved with August Darnell and
Mm.
Savannah Band. Tommy heard about me. He called me into his office down the road on 57th Street. And within 5 minutes, we're screaming at each other. He was telling me how I should promote records to the dance chart, but the record was already number one. Anyway, we've since gotten along great, because we were both very strong. So I was developing sort of this attitude, or I'm coming into my own, or I was becoming confident, probably cocky at 20 years old. In any event, I got fired from that job. somebody at that company was a little threatened by my work, and I went to work at an independent rock label owned by Genya Raven,
Hmm.
the first female rocker of 10-wheel drive. The company was funded by cocaine money.
Oh, back in
They went
back
out
in
of
the
business.
days,
They went out of
it's all
business
right.
a
I
year
guess back
later.
in the days,
They,
yeah.
shocking, right? They went out of business. I didn't have a job. I then got hired by a guy by the name of Jim Knapp, who ran a small independent company called Musico, and we worked out of his apartment. And that's really where I started to hone my skills about how to talk to DJs. Because when I came back from university and I started to DJ at clubs in New York, and the clubs got bigger and bigger, and I think in 1979 or 1980, Jelly Bean called, and he said he was leaving Xenon. Did I want to audition for the Saturday night slot? And I said,
Hmm.
sure. No plan, sure. Audition, got the job, and that's when promotion people started to call me at home.
Hmm.
Things started to turn. They would get my home
Wow.
phone number. They would say, Brad, can you put me on the guest list? I would say, sure. Yeah, well, they said, we're going to bring your records to play. I said, do I have to pay for the records? I don't even know the records. They said, no, no, no. We bring them. They're free, but we want you to play them. And I told him, I said, I can't play them that night. I have to go home and listen to them. Apparently, he
Hmm.
didn't tell promotion people that. They wanted you to play them right then and there. And I remember thinking, most of these guys and gals, although they were lovely people, they really didn't know how to talk to DJs to convince them to give a record a shot. And I said, I could probably do that. So in 1983, I started a company with no
My
plan,
God.
Bob. There was no plan. I
My
had a
God.
partner.
That's
His name was
when
Joe Jocko.
promotion was born. Wow.
Born was 1983. My partner, Joe Jocko, we used to work at BLS. He became my partner. He put $4,000 into the business. I put $6,000 into the business, and we were in business.
My God. I started in the business a year later after you. Unbelievable.
With Bob,
Unbelievable.
with no plan other than I trust my ears. I tell the truth. If I don't like something, I'm going to tell you it's not for me. And if I like something, I'm going to tell you I think I could represent it. That's how it started. And
Wow.
a year and a half later, he leaves the company to start his own business. I end up owning the company myself, and it's been cool. It's been an incredible run. It's just been
You know,
too
I
much
would say
information. Right?
I'm surprised you're not teaching classes for a lot of these young, inspired comers into the music business. You really should. You have so much knowledge. I know the business changed. Like you've seen the era of from vinyl all the way to streaming, and that's a huge.
Well, in
You've been through a
1983,
couple of eras. in
exactly
the
in 1983, I was shipping 12-inch vinyl with two pieces of cardboard in a record sleeve,
Yes, the two
right?
cardboard, the record sleeve, the
Record sleeve
fragile
and the
sticker in
flyer,
the corner,
right?
and the, and the, and
Exactly.
the, and the
The
label
sticker, right?
sticker.
And the slaw and the flyer that goes in, right? I remember there was a
We used to
company.
call it. We used to call it one page.
Yes, a one sheet, right?
One
But I
sheet. One
remember
sheet.
this before there were faxes or emails. I remember every Friday I found a company that would type out a newsletter that I would type out, and they would mail it for me to all the DJs. I'd give them the copy. I'd go to the office. I'd sit with them. They'd print it. I'd approve the copy, and they would mail it to everybody from there. You understand, 1983, the big thing, Bob, the thing everybody was talking about in 1983 was overnight mail.
Yeah. Wow.
And then there was a thing they called a fax
Priority.
machine.
Well, fax machine. Yeah, but
Before
fax
fax was
machine
the
been
telex.
before that. Yeah, the fax machine. No, it was telex. Then, but fax was before that. I remember. But nobody
Right,
had a fax machine. You had to go to fax it to a certain companies used to have
right.
it.
Oh,
Yes.
or you use the telex. So I went to a company that before faxes, they typed this out for me, they printed it and mailed it to everybody, and we
Hmm.
paid them for the service. At
Yes.
that time, people were talking about this. It's called, I think, a computer or something. It was like a
AOL.
desktop
It's
box. It had
AOL.
the
Yes.
floppy disk,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
got one of those, right? And that's how it started. So we went from 12-inch vinyl to the DAT.
The-
That lasted about, I don't know, 4.5 minutes, right?
yes.
Then it went to CDs,
CDs.
right? Remember CDs? All of which we mailed. We changed with the format, and then it went
Yeah.
digital.
Yeah.
And boy, is it a lot easier
Yes.
and a
I
lot cheaper
know.
for companies to release music.
Hmm. Brad, what's some of the things that really uh, you kind of left an impression on you, whether it's artists or companies you work with, whether it's independent labels or managers or major labels, that really kind of left a really a positive, strong impression on you as an independent promotion guy in the music business, as also your own business, independent guy.
I've always been attracted to interesting people, interesting things, and passion,
Hmm.
because those qualities, those characteristics cannot be taught. You can't teach someone to be passionate, Bob.
No,
You are or
no,
you're not.
something. Yes.
You can't teach someone to be interesting. They are or they're not.
Hmm.
And with that, I've always been attracted to people who love what they do for a living, and you could see it. I know people
Yeah.
who, they go to work 9 to 5. They go to make the money. I get it. I understand. If I ask you honestly, how many people do you know in your life that love their job? How many people? Not many.
Correct.
And the blessing is never the money.
Hmm.
The blessing is that you love what you do for a living. That's the first reward. I believe that firmly. And I'll also believe that if you love what you do for a living, you're going to make a decent living because you want to do it a lot.
Yes.
That
Yes.
it's not a
Yes.
chore, it's exciting,
Yes.
right? So the things
Correct.
that attract me are people who believe in what they're involved with in anything. It could be
Mhm.
music, it could be fashion, it could be construction. I love the creative. I love the
Yes.
creative process. I'm naturally a creative, and I found my way into that space through owning this company and looking at openings in the marketplace. That's how we got involved in the remix curation business
Well,
because
that's my
record
next
companies,
question. Yes. About remix. I mean, I remember back in the day when remix business started, it pretty much basically sometime it put certain remixes, producers, you want to call them remixes, on
Mhm.
in the, in the spotlight, or they put artists that nobody heard of them, or certain songs that really were boring, and all
Mm.
of a sudden they chart toppers, number one on the chart, whether it's a dance chart, a pop chart, top 100. I mean, the remix business became the business to bring artists to all I don't want, well, now we use the word platform, but to all
Genres.
fields or to all kind of listeners in the music business. You took a rock song, you made it into a pop, dance, club, house music song, or a ballad to a dance song. Everybody jumping and dancing in the nightclub for it, and nobody heard of the song. All of a sudden, it's a big hit. Took a foreign songs, came in from Europe or Latin America
Mhm.
with certain remixes or certain remixes. Sometimes the guys, nobody knows who these guys are. And they put a remix, and all of a sudden they're the next best thing after sliced bread.
So it's interesting you talk about the remix. So for me, the metaphor of the remix, because music is art, would
Yes.
be a painting or a portrait on a wall.
And I'm sure you took a lot of records to number one on the Billboard charts because of the remix.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because that was the chart that accepted and
Yeah.
supported
Yeah.
that format. So with a painting in a museum, you'll see color and composition,
Yeah.
and in music, you hear melody and lyric. The frame around the portrait, to me, is the remix around the song. That a remix reframes a piece of art so that people who would not normally look at it or listen to it will now pay attention to it. So for us, the way we do it is to maintain the full integrity of the vocal. I will not
Mm.
get involved in curating any remixes that turn these records into remixer records versus artist records. The key is to maintain the full integrity of the composition out of respect for the artist,
Yeah.
out of respect for the label, out of respect for the songwriter. And it became this thing. And I remember Back in the day, I would simply recommend remixers to record labels, and they'd hire them, and they'd have the remix done. Then they'd send me the vinyl, and I'd ship it out. And I would remember when I would recommend the remix, I'd always get the promotion account, right? Because I'm already involved.
Yeah.
It was probably about 25 years ago. I get a call from Virgin Records, who had just let go the A&R department for the dance area. And they said they had just signed Depeche Mode from Mute. And part of the deal with Virgin and Depeche Mode is that Dave Gahan, the lead singer, gets his own album. And they need someone to remix the Dave Gahan single, Do I Know Someone? My phone was not off before I was in their office.
Wow.
I met the people from the label, I met the people from the act, and it was the first time they gave me a budget to find the remixer, A&R it, submit it, and then promote it. So my company was starting to become a concept to completion company, involved from everything from the choice of the single to the remix. We did the remix, it went number one, and I thought, well, that was a nice experience. Great, done and dusted, we're good. About 6 months later, I get a call on Christmas Eve day from a British guy with a very deep voice who said, Is this Brad? I said, It is. He said, I just want to say thanks for the Dave Gahan record going number one. I said, It's my pleasure. But by the way, that was 6 months ago. Who are you? He said, My name is Daniel Miller. I own Mute Records. And he said, I'm wondering, would you like to executive produce the Depeche Mode remix package?
Wow.
Greatest hit. And I said, don't call me. It's Christmas Eve. No, I didn't say that. So we did that, and I think we did 4 records. They all went number one on Billboard. We promoted them. And I thought, well, that was good. Nice experience. And I'm done. This now started this thing because at that time, as you remember, the business was starting to suffer a little bit. Napster had come about. People were file sharing illegally. Facebook was coming about. People were stealing music, sharing it. Record labels were not getting paid. So the first departments that were let go was the A&R departments in dance, and then the promotion departments in dance. So word got around that maybe Brad could do this. I don't know. People started to call, and it became a thing. But not because I woke up one day and said I want to do this. That's the story of my life. I'm not this super aggressive. What's the new thing I got to do? I got to jump into this. The fact is, I'm very conservative. People don't think I am, but I'm extremely cautious. And that may be one of the reasons I'm still around. I don't know. I don't jump into things right away. I don't have, I think I'm too frightened, quite frankly, which I got to tell you also, anxiety is a big part of my story. I suffer from anxiety.
For somebody who walked into clubs and DJs and
Yeah.
got on the turntables and mixing records and become a remixer and talking to people, definitely you don't portray that because
I
your
could
job
never,
is to be in the midst of it, going to clubs,
right, right.
hanging out, talking all the time, whether it's on the phone or in person.
Well, let's remember something. When you go to clubs, you drink. I never DJ'd at night without drinking. And I
Uh-huh.
developed an alcohol problem.
Oof.
And I developed a
And
cocaine.
you always work out too. I remember when I see you
Yes,
always
but at
work
the
out.
same
Yes.
time, I was drinking and doing cocaine and working out because I thought if you do something good in the morning for yourself,
Do
you
something.
do something bad at the end of the day. I mean, don't you deserve it, Bob? Right? Don't you deserve it?
uh,
And that
yes, I
ultimately
guess.
almost cost me my life. And it almost cost me my company 23 years ago.
Wow. Wow. That
I was
heavy.
this close from
That
losing my
heavy.
life and losing my
I
company.
didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
well, that
Wow.
and why? Because I was
You,
frightened. I have free
wow.
floating anxiety that can attach itself to anything.
Unbelievable.
And but you'd never know because look, with the music business, it's a front, isn't it? It's all about what you look like. And that's why you're telling me these things in the beginning of the interview, and I'm laughing and I'm thinking, if he only knew.
Yeah. Yes. You only
Now,
know
honestly,
sometimes.
I could say honestly now in my sobriety, which
Yes.
almost 25 years later, that I'm becoming the man I always drank to be.
Unbelievable. You
So things have
know,
changed a lot.
just question, regarding the music, the remix business, that became a massive, massive business. Literally changed people's lives. Managers, remix companies knew. What was some of the highest paid remixes that you heard of or you came across? I know there were people getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to remix
Well,
records.
in the so when the remix business started, it started in the 70s,
Yeah.
right? And club culture, we didn't call it club culture then. DJs playing records when I played records, it was I got paid $250 at night to play at Xenon. It was a huge club. That was
Hmm.
considered a lot of money. When
Hmm.
DJs started to play records in clubs, it was about 25 to $50 a night. Now
Unbelievable.
it's a multi-billion-dollar business because DJs have become
Hundreds
the
of
new rock stars,
thousands, $1 million to play.
right? So
Yeah.
someone like Calvin Harris, they make multi-millions a year. So
Yeah.
it's become a billion-dollar business. Um, but remixes started in the 70s for a couple of $1,000.
Hmm.
In the 80s is when it really started to pick up.
Wow.
Into the mid to late 80s, into the 90s, remixers were getting paid 25, $30,000 a remix. And they were also asking for publishing and
And
royalty money,
royalties. Uh-huh. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because reframing that portrait brought that composition to a whole new audience that would never listen to records like Everything But the Girl,
Oh, that.
Missing, which was cut
Yes.
as a ballad and released
Yes.
by the label 3 times, and it did nothing.
Yeah. And became an
Todd Terry
international
remixes the
hit,
record, it goes
massive
number
hit
one pop.
after Todd
That's
Terry.
right. So
Yes.
if that is the paradigm by which everything else is being judged, who wouldn't pay that kind of money to either resurrect a hit or start a career?
I mean, it put big management on on the light. I remember when
It
what's his
put
name?
Gary
Gary's
in
God
the
rest his
pulpit.
soul. Yes,
It
God
took
rest
it
his.
took it put Judy Weinstein and Def
Yes.
Mix before the record in the limelight. Exactly. David Morales, who was a partner with Judy at the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
David is still around, still DJing,
It's
still
very
mixing
active.
records.
I see him
She
always.
also
Yes,
looked after
yes,
Frankie Knuckles. She looked after
yeah,
Toshi Tommy, Bobby D'Ambrosio. A lot of my friends, right? But yes, it turned the remix into a business, into an empire,
yes,
into a movement,
yes.
and it wasn't local; it was global.
It's
And it
funny.
was a format
Back
that
in
could
the
be that could be applied to new artists or established artists. I remember back in the day in the 80s, early 80s, when I started the company, pop artists didn't really want to have their records remixed, Bob,
Yeah,
because
because they
it's a little
thought it's gonna take
sellout.
the
Maybe it was like
authenticity of their.
maybe it was
Yes,
like a
yeah,
little, yeah, it was a little
yeah,
gay. They thought it was a little gay. They didn't want that, so they'd go to R&B or they'd go to pop. But the moment those records didn't chart, they'd come back to dance. So the dance business, up until recently, has
yeah,
always sort of been the back door of the house. They'd let us in,
yeah.
but don't sit on the couch. The couch is for company.
Oh,
You can
not
you can eat
anymore. Not
you can eat in
anymore.
the kitchen.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
now every major artist wants to be in the fray. Why?
Yes.
Because dance music and the remix business is the sweet spot for the
Yeah.
18 to 24, 25, 34-year-old demo.
Unbelievable.
Why? It's the
Yes.
first time in your life you have your first job after school. You get your driver's license. You get your first job. You have your first income. You moved away from home. So the car business, credit card business, fashion, they all want that demo because you
Yeah.
get them early, you get them for life. That's the slogan. And dance pop has been the sweet spot of that demographic for decades. I did not create any of that. It just worked out, right? And it's not showing any signs of slowing down because, as I mentioned, if you take a look at television commercials tonight, you're going to see commercials for laundry detergent, for fast food that use classic dance records remixed as the background for the
Oh yeah.
product that have nothing to do with music because they want that
Absolutely.
demo, right?
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
ended up starting to remix classic artists.
And when
And the
Avicii
classic,
came in, he took the whole thing to another level.
yes, that's correct.
Yes.
That's
Yes. He
correct.
took the whole thing to another level.
Well, if you listen to his first hit, it was really a country record.
Yeah. No, his first hit wasn't it the
Wake
sample
me
from the
up,
jazz
wake me
record?
up.
No, that was no,
Really,
but there was Levels was before. That was
yes,
his big
but
thing.
Wake Me Up changed that dance format
Yes.
into a pop format. And
Yes.
then Swedish House Mafia, also from the same area,
Yeah. Oh,
turned
absolutely.
and
Yes.
turned DJs.
Axwell and these guys. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
DJs then became an act,
Yeah.
not working on a track, but they became writers, producers, and the act
To
featuring the
perform. Yeah.
vocalists.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Therein lies the festival business.
Forget it. I mean, these guys, they were flying them on helicopters to festivals. They're like royalties. You see?
And the documentaries, if you haven't seen the Aoki documentary, fantastic. The
Really.
Avicii documentary, fantastic.
I
Because it
seen. I know
talks,
it came out on Netflix, but I'll definitely
yeah,
will
and
watch
and
it.
because
Yes.
it talks about who these people were. And the common thread, in my opinion, with the greatest songwriters, the greatest musicians, to some extent, the greatest singers, the greatest DJs who normally DJ and perform in the dark.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Is that they're tortured souls, that there's something about performing in front of a crowd, maybe in the dark, that protects them.
I see.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like
Mm.
Elton John, who for all his career has worn glasses. Up until recently, he never needed glasses. He hid behind the glasses because he was afraid.
What's
So
his
there's
name?
this backline story of
Yeah.
you know, watch the. I'm not going to tell you the punchline of Avicii or the Steve Aoki, but they were tortured in their own way. And if the
Yes.
smart ones or the ones who are able to get out of that fear are able to use the medium as a vehicle to get the emotion out, maybe the way I use my business or you use your business. Everybody's got something, Bob. Everybody's
Yeah.
got some challenge, some shtick, some secret. We've all got some secret, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you learn about it and you address it and you confront it, you can run into the fear. You don't have to run away from the fear. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's the business I really would love to be in. I'd love to talk about fear because I have it.
Wow.
And a lot
Well,
of people
that's
that you and I know
yes.
have it, but we don't want to talk about it. I'm 100% open to talking about it.
And few
I,
lost their lives.
that's why I drank. That's why I
Yes.
was losing my life.
Yeah. What's his
And I
name?
didn't even know. I
Eric
didn't know. But
Morello.
anyway,
You
of
know.
course,
Oh,
so many
Avicii
DJs.
also. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many DJs.
Yes.
If it wasn't for alcohol, it was drugs. If it wasn't drugs, it was other addictions. And my mom used to say, everybody's got something.
Hmm.
So the idea is to recognize the
Something
challenge.
interesting to talk about.
This really is my mission.
Maybe
Much
maybe we
more.
start a podcast on it.
I'm
Absolutely.
open to it.
Yes.
I have personally been able to turn my fear into fuel.
Well, that's the whole idea. Yes.
For
Yes.
years, it paralyzed me. That's why I'll tell you this quick story. So I'm DJing at Xenon, 3,000 people a night, never played a record without having alcohol in me. I would go to the club right before I would start, and I would say to the bartender, make me a Greyhound, which was grapefruit juice and vodka, and send him up to the booth and keep him coming all night. I did it every night I played. One
Wow.
night I go in there, Bob, and I say to the bartender the same thing, make me a Greyhound and send it up. And he looks at me, he says, no. I say, no. I said, you know who I am? He said, yeah, you're the DJ. I said, that's correct. I said, you know my name? He said, yeah, you're Brad, aren't you? I said, that's correct. He said, Brad, let me tell you how I know who you are. 30 minutes before you got to the club tonight, the manager of the club called every busboy, every barback, every waiter, waitress, and manager into the room. And they were told that the first person who serves Brad one drink tonight will be fired on the spot.
Wow.
That was the first time that I knew that people found out that I was drinking too much. I recently
Unbelievable.
connected with that manager and I thanked him, although he never knew that I knew because he never told me about the meeting. But that was the first time in my life I realized, uh-oh, now they know. I didn't get sober for the next 18 years.
Hmm. Brad, you've been in the business for a long time. What's some of the things that, and you've seen the changes. Um, what some of the things that you really miss about the music business that it lost it from back in the day, and what's the new things that you embraced and say, "Wow, okay, this is great." I'm glad we're in that era. Obviously, technology is a big part of it, but let's start with what you miss and what we lost.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy question to answer, and it's a word that I used before. It's my experience. Just I speak only on behalf of my experience. That so many of a younger generation in the music business especially on the corporate side, whether it's record companies or managers, they don't really love the music. They don't have the passion about the music. I got in this business because I'm a fan. I hear something I like, I have to hear it 100 times in a row. Now, I understand that business is business, as is yours and as is mine. Nevertheless, I don't feel their passion. I don't feel their feeling, and I miss that. And I think that the older all of us get, we become a dying breed. And there are
Yeah.
some that have it, but many don't. I think it's more important for people in the music business to tell their friends they're in the music business, right? As if it's easy. It's easy,
Hmm.
right? We come into work, we sit at a desk, bingo. Nobody understands the machinations involved. So I miss that. What do I love most about the music business now is the technology. It's just amazing if you know how to use it and you don't abuse it,
Hmm.
right? So you own a label, the amount of money you spent on signing an act, manufacturing product, shipping, distribution, promotion, marketing, all in hopes that some end user in Ohio who's 18 years old is going to wake up one morning and listen to Bob's new record. Now, with technology, with this little machine, we
Everything.
can go direct from the music to the consumer. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yeah.
Record companies are still going through the entire arc. But why not? If you have the constituency, if you have the fan base, and you know that people here are in love with something you're representing, just go direct. Your phone
Correct.
allows it, right?
Hmm.
That's the plus. What's the minus? They have the attention span of a lamp.
And right now we are a crossroad and an end of an era. Also, we gonna in the next few years we are stepping into a new era of consuming content, consuming music, whether it's visual or audio. And obviously, always the music business, then the film business follows, or the visual. But this time could be together. But I know right now we are not just a crossroad, at an end of an era. And a lot of people refuse to say, no, everything will be the same. No, nobody thought big, massive retail outlets with manufacturing factories, employees, trucking companies used to ship product, printers, pack, all of that disappeared. If you tell any kid right now about all of this, they'll think you'll talk a different language.
Bob, because of my age, I remember in meetings at record companies where they didn't think this MTV thing was going to last. And then they had this thing called rap music that's never going to last. It's a fad, the kids, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
black kids, they're going to get over that. And then the Napster thing and the Facebook thing, it's okay. It's going to pass. Don't worry. And at the end of the day, it became a tsunami, the perfect storm. That which they feared the most
yes,
became a reality because they didn't endorse change. It is essential to endorse change. Now, as I
yeah,
said, I'm not the fastest endorsing change. I give it a moment to settle.
yes.
Something happens, let it settle, and then take a look at it.
Just like a
Now
house
with
when they build it, you cannot judge it. Let it settle so you can find all the cracks and all.
that's
Yes,
right. That's right.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
strength of anything, a
yeah,
relationship, a house, is based on the foundation.
yeah.
Can the house withstand a flood? Can a relationship stand turmoil? Right? Right? That's the nature of the human. The record business historically makes these big announcements about things. Some don't do the research, and then something never happens.
Yes.
I much prefer to watch, learn from people's wins and maybe their challenges, and then jump into it. And I am not the quickest on that, but I think that maybe that one of the reasons we're still relevant because we have weathered the storm.
Where do you think we're going? What's next?
Uh, well, look, people will always listen to music.
We know that, but
It is
what
how it is
dictates the success
consumed.
is the young people now.
Well, it's how it's consumed, Bob.
Yes,
Right? So back in the day, you have the jukebox.
correct.
Then you take records, you put them on a turntable, and you play them in a club. If they're hits, they'll go on the radio.
The radio
MTV
came in.
comes
The radio
along.
become
Right. MTV comes
yes,
along. Now you get to see it and listen to it. So now
yes,
it's two dimensional.
yeah,
And then cell phone technology and the internet comes about, and things are moving at record speed.
And YouTube.
Right, which is
Yeah.
basically the internet version of
Yeah.
MTV.
Yeah.
Right, right. And now the amount of money it takes to shoot a video is much less because it's supply and
Yes.
demand. Right,
Yes.
it is the law of supply and demand.
And
Where is it going?
Spotify came in and all of that. Then social
So
media
right,
came in.
right. So now you're a record company whose business is predicated on the sale
Yeah.
of recorded music. But now you have platforms where you can listen to something that you love without paying for that particular piece of music,
Hmm.
and you could listen to anything for $9.99 a month.
Hmm.
I remember back in the day, right? 24 hits, all in one album, yours for $14, right?
Yes. Late night
Right,
commercials.
right. But this is what, if you remember, the commercials were every hit ever recorded, by
Yes.
the original band,
Yeah.
yours for, and fill in the blank for the amount of money.
Yeah.
But you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. Do you know why?
No.
Because
No.
if they didn't get enough of the orders, they wouldn't manufacture the product.
They have to
They'd
have
send
enough.
your check back.
Yeah, but some of them made millions. They were shipping
So
millions of
that's right.
albums.
But if
Yeah.
they did not get enough people who would send their check in from the television commercials,
What was it? Dance hits? One of the biggest one, or
no,
was
it
it
was
something?
hold on.
It was
I think it
something.
began
Yeah.
with I think it began with a T.
Uh,
Anyway, so that's how it happened. And now, the United States was never a singles business.
no.
Record companies would release 45s, they'd break even on the manufacture of 45s as the invitation or the bait to buy the album,
Yeah.
right? My first record, when I was 7 years old, my Aunt Dora bought for me. It was Meet the Beatles. I have it here. 9 tracks, 5 number 1 hits on the album. 5 number 1 hits on the album. Now you have artists releasing 20 records, 30 records on an album. Who has the time?
Yes.
I'm not interested, Bob, in quantity. I'm interested in quality. Don't give me more nonsense. Give me hit records. This is a problem. You want to know where it's going? That's a problem. So you have the internet where people now are streaming, not buying.
Hmm.
You have companies that are giving you more but less quality. It's the perfect storm. Is it any wonder that a label like Atlantic Records let go of 170 people last year in
Hmm.
October? 170 people at one record company lost their job. Why? Because they can't afford to keep people on salary. So something
In
has got to change. You cannot continue
yes.
to fool the consumer, but for so long.
Where you think it's going to consuming music? Beside, I mean, you got Spotify, but what's after Spotify and TikTok and Instagram Reels and Shorts?
So now artists are being signed on the strength of TikTok social media numbers, and
Correct.
now they're being dropped from the labels because labels realize they're not musicians. They had a hit.
One hit
How
wonders.
about this, Bob? Here's a really interesting concept. An A&R guy who trusts his ears, who signs something on the strength of the music, not because he looks at social media numbers, because he's scared. How about that concept? You see, fear, again, like I talked before, is
Hmm.
now invading the music business. When you don't trust what you do for a living, you can't be trusted on making a decision.
So
You
would that
can't.
all go back to what you said earlier? Being passionate.
Passionate and trust. Look, I know what I don't know. No one has ever asked me to sing a song. No one has ever asked me to go on stage. You know why? Because I suck at it. I do what I do. You do what you do. The artist does what they do. The songwriter does what they do. The record label does what they do. The A&R guy does what they do. But when a medium is predicated on, well, if you make that decision, you sign that act and it doesn't do well, you get fired. Or the promotion guy doesn't deliver the number 1 record of the top 10, you get fired. It's called learned helplessness. It's a
Mhm.
psychological term where if you do something, you don't get rewarded. And if you don't do something, you don't get rewarded. So you sit paralyzed. How many A&R people won't make a decision on a record? Because if they sign it and it doesn't do well, they get fired. If they don't sign it and another label picks it up and it's a hit, they get
You're
fired.
gonna get fired.
So what's the
Yes.
answer? What,
For
you
passing
sit
on the
there
record.
trembling, right? You don't do anything. How about this? Make a decision even if it's wrong. Trust what you do for a living. Trust it, or move on and give that position to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. The
And I
only
have been
difference
victim
is
of that
somebody takes
too.
the shot. Yeah.
And you take the shot, right? They asked Michael Jordan in the height of his career, "What do you do when you're in a slump?"
Take the shot.
He said, "I shoot through the slump."
Yeah.
He keeps shooting through the slump. You're not going to get better sitting at home.
Hmm.
You're not. You got to get out and do something. And sometimes it doesn't pan out. But I promise you this: if you don't do nothing, nothing's going to happen. Guaranteed. Every
I heard
time.
it before. They say shoot, take the shot, then aim later. Take the shot. Take the
You know what?
shot.
Take the shot.
Yeah.
Or you can
Take the
sit there
shot.
and tremble.
Yeah.
I prefer not to
Yes.
do that.
Brad, it's pretty interesting and really insightful and inspiring. And this conversation could go on for hours. And really, you have so much to talk about. Me and you also so much to talk about, and about the music business, from where it was and how it became and where's it going. That's the next thing where everybody trembling. They talk about AI music. I don't think AI, generative AI music, is a threat. No, I don't think so. It's a tool that we have to adjust ourselves to it. People always were sampling records, were buying modules with all type of sounds. Not everybody. It's been 20, 30 years. People in studios, there's no live musicians there. It's all modules, all
Right.
machines. Yeah. So that's not a threat. I think the threat is the revenues that been record labels and artists got used to back in the days, from physical, then to streaming, and to nothing, to like what's next? Just performances, just collaborations, commercials. What is it about now?
So the
How does the
income,
music business make money?
right. So the income from recorded music is the least income generated revenue source in the music business. Right. So how does one make money? Publishing, touring, sponsorship, sync license. That's why the 360 deal was born, because record companies cannot survive any longer on the model from the 1920s and 1930s
But
and 1940s.
publishing, and you need to have streaming. You need to have activities on the
Correct?
actual music itself to be consumed. If it's not consumed, there's no publishing. You know that.
Yes. Nevertheless, what is it? According to recent totals, 1,500 streams equal the sale of one single.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Yes.
1,500 different end users, not someone who listens over and over again. So if that's the model, record labels and artists will never generate a proper income based on the advances they're given that have to be
Yes.
recouped. It's impossible.
So artists always stay in debt for the record label.
That's right. That's why. And it started with Prince when he shot the video with the word slave on his forehead. He realized early going that these deals are slave deals. And this is
Mhm.
way before technology. Record labels and the record business historically has not been the fairest business in the world. For years, it was
Brad,
mob run and mob owned.
yes,
And,
we know
I
that.
don't know if it is now or not, but
Not anymore, I think. No. Back in the,
I don't
yes.
know. I can't speak to that. All I know is that we don't play in that space. I've never given anybody an incentive to play music that I represent other than the quality of the music and the creativity of the marketing. And if I have to get involved in other incentives, then I need to leave the business. And I will
Brad,
leave the business.
an advice that you would give to somebody who wants to start in the music business, whether it's an
Do not
artist
rely
or an
on it.
entrepreneur?
Do not rely on the music business as your sole source of income. Get a real job with something you love. If you want to do music as a side hustle and it hits, God bless you. But do not rely on this business for your sole source of income. You will be terribly disappointed. And it has nothing to do with the people in the business necessarily,
Hmm.
because for every million that want to make it, what's the percentage of those that do? You could probably answer that better than I can. So I'll leave that with you.
um, what's next for Brad LeBeau beside the podcast that we're going to talk about afterwards? Maybe we do how to tear fear to fuel.
Well, it's funny you ask. I am getting involved in the cravat business. Do you know what a cravat is?
Cravat business. No, please
Cravat?
enlighten me. Enlighten me. Cravat.
It's only because you asked. I'll show you. It's what I'm wearing today.
Oh,
So the cravat was the precursor to the bow tie and the straight tie.
uh-huh.
And I've always believed that, like you just mentioned, going to record companies where people sit in sweatsuits. I believe through the course of my life that the sense of American style and fashion, particularly for men, has been dumbed down to the point where people go to Broadway in sweatpants.
Unbelievable.
That's not the way I was raised. As a little boy, when I went to the theater with my parents, because my parents were all about that, I had to wear a little suit. When we got on an airplane, I had to wear a suit.
Back in the day, people used to wear suits and
That's right. You
all
wear
decked
that's
out,
right.
all decked
You
up
wear a
to go
suit.
on the plane. Not anymore.
That's right. That's
Flip
right. Because
flops,
it was an
t-shirts.
event. It was exciting, right? It was a privilege. So over the last couple of years, I've been just watching people and thinking, when I wear this kind of thing, I just do it because I feel comfortable in it, and I just like the look necessarily. It's pretty simple. That I wonder if it would not be interesting as a male female accessory, all ages, all demographics, from hip hop to the buttoned up 75-year-old British guy. So we're launching a brand called LeBeau cravats.
Wow. I'd like to get one for sure. Definitely.
Absolutely, Bob. Now that I'm on
Yes.
your show, I will. And you'll get it at the wholesale price. Only kidding. I'll send it to you for free. My pleasure.
Love
I
it.
didn't expect to talk about it, but yeah. So
Uh,
that's and
That's
and I
what's
love
next for Brad LeBeau. That's fine. Hey, you're an
we
entrepreneur. You're
continue.
venturing it out. Yes.
Yeah, and we continue new music because look, fashion is art, music is art.
All connected.
It's
It's
all
all
to me. It
connected.
is all connected.
Yes. Yes.
What
It
you
is. It
when
is.
you hear a piece of music that you like, you feel good, right? You feel
You know
good.
that fashion and music
When you
dictate
walk out of
the
the house
sounds and
feeling
the look.
buttoned up, you feel good. You look
The
good.
sounds of music
Yes,
always dictate
yes.
the new look.
That's right. So fashion,
Yes.
and talk about that. I'll end by telling you this. So my sweet spot has always been disco from the 70s. And as you know, it's come full circle
Yes.
because of Daft Punk, because of Dua Lipa, because of Doja Cat. So many of the artists we work with now want to have their records remixed 1970s disco. Fashion
Unbelievable.
designers are creating new lines around what was hip 50 years ago. So music has sort of influenced fashion. Fashion influences style. It's all connected. It's all the
Absolutely.
way we think. I mean,
100%.
Bob, if you hear a piece of music today that you haven't heard since you were 14 years old, you'll remember where you were the first time you heard it, who you were with, what you were wearing. And it's like the olfactory sense. When we smell a perfume or a cologne of somebody who walks down the street, we remember the first person who wore it.
Oh, yes.
So that's the way the brain is connected. It's all connected, right? And
Yes.
so, look, and I'm passionate about it. And the business could fall on its face, but I'm going to
Yes.
try. And let me be clear: I know nothing, absolutely nothing, about the retail fashion business.
Well, you know
But I'm
what?
going
You'll
to,
you
but I'm
will
going to take a
succeed. You
shot.
know why? Because you're going to take the shot and you have the passion
Taking the
for it.
shot, Bob.
And you have the passion for it. Brad, I want to thank you for joining us today on Soundbreaker. And this concludes today's episode. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned to our next episode. Brad, thanks again, brother. Really
My
enjoyed
pleasure,
having you.
Bob. God bless
Definitely
you.
brought a lot of memories, man.
I'm
A lot.
going to go home and
Yes.
wear some suspenders tonight. Get out of here. Goodbye. See ya.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.